Hello everybody, welcome to another Building EDH episode. I am Nick's partner in crime on the channel, and this will be my Animar Souls of Elements deck. I went to the tournament with him and this is what I brought to the table. Animar is a green, blue, and red elemental creature with protection from white and from black. And it says whenever you cast a creature spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Animar, Soul of Elements. Creature spells you cast cost one less to cast for each +1/+1 counter on Animar. I want to say thank you to Matt for being our channel's very first Patreon, and for anybody that wants to follow him down this rabbit hole, the link is right below. So the way Animar works in my deck, I want him to go infinite as fast as possible. Without further ado, this is how it works. Starting with the combo pieces, we have Ancestral Statue. Ancestral Statue pretty much says whenever it comes on and off the battlefield with Animar in tow, it gives Animar an extra counter every time. So if Animar is already at, let's say, 3 to 4 counters, this is just going back and forth constantly, making Animar infinite. Our next way to make Animar go infinite is with Dockside Extortionist and Tamir Sabertooth. When Dockside Extortionist comes onto the battlefield, as long as we have 3 or more artifact treasure tokens, we can pay it into the Tamir Sabertooth to bounce Dockside back, netting us an extra token every time he comes back to the battlefield, which also makes Animar go infinite. Now that we have Animar infinite, we will bring out to the battlefield Walking Ballista. Walking Ballista says pay XX amount and put that many +1 counters on it. And what we can do with that is remove all those +1 counters infinitely, or let's just say a million counters on it, and we could remove all those counters and just obliterate everything on the battlefield. If for some reason we're not able to get Walking Ballista off, we have Kedis Emberclaw Familiar, which deals combat damage to every opponent as long as Animar hits somebody, which is totally possible with the protection from white and from black. But if for some reason we don't have that, we have a few trample cards. We have Rancor, Duskshell Crawler, and Sirach Dragonclaw. Each of these cards give us trample for Animar to help us get through to that, which will allow us to have Kedis Emberclaw go off properly. Next we have our tutor and search cards. Starting off with Worldly Tutor, we can search for our library for a creature card and reveal that card to all the players, and then put that back on top of it. Then we have Shared Summons. And up next, to search our combo pieces, we have Imperial Recruiter. Imperial Recruiter enters the battlefield, search your library for a creature card with power 2 or less, reveal it, and put it into your hand. This works very well with Walking Ballista because it's a 0/0, so it counts. Unfortunately, Ancestral Statue does not make the cut for that card. Next on the list, we have Fabricate. And then we have Fauna Shaman, which, being a creature, also gives Animar a +1 counter. And to top it all off, we have Finale of Devastation. Search your library and or graveyard for a creature card with converted mana cost X or less and put it onto the battlefield. If you search your library this way, shuffle it. If X is 10 or more creatures you control, get +X and gain haste until end of turn. This is a very powerful card when it comes to ending the game and finding exactly what we need. Up next, we have a couple search cards for forests. This deck runs a lot of really good lands, so this is a very crucial card in the deck. Next, we have Fairhaven Elf. Whenever Fairhaven Elf enters the battlefield, you may search your library for another basic land card. To start off our protection list, we have Lightning Greaves, our classic artifact piece. To follow that up, we have a very great card in this deck, Spellskite. Spellskite is a great card because it's a colorless creature, which means if Animar has at least 2 counters on, this is just a free card to play. awesome protection card. Then we have Slip Out the Back. Slip Out the Back is just a really great card to have in a pinch. And then we have Phyrexian Revoker, another colorless creature which is a free play for us in this deck. And it stops a problem real fast. We have everybody's classic Heroic Intervention. Permanents you control gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. Very great protection for our board. Then we have Snakeskin Veil. This one's awesome because it puts an additional +1 counter onto Animar while giving her hexproof. One of my personal favorites is Kira the Great Glass Spinner. I just love having a bubble over all of my creatures. Definitely makes everybody sigh. A really fun one is Painter's Servant. Can be considered another free play for Animar. And it pretty much turns any spell that's not in play yet into any given color, which means if I choose white or black, Animar pretty much can't be targeted at that point from anything that's in your hand. Coming up next, the Wandering Arcade. Another really great free card to play. And last on our protection list, we have the Void Winnower. Had to put a few Eldrazi's in here, and this is definitely one of my more favorite ones to play. You'd be surprised at how many times this will actually work in a game of 4. This is our only recursion piece in the deck, Felden of the Third Path. Really, really great card. For a red and 2 in tap, you can put a token onto the battlefield that's a copy of target creature card in your graveyard. And at the end of the turn, you have to sacrifice it. But what that does is it gets us back any of these pieces to continue the combo going off. So it's a really great add-on for the deck. Next up, we have our removal spells. To start us off, we have Reclamation Sage. Very good for destroying artifacts and enchantments, and it also counts towards Animar's counter count. And at a cheaper come-in, it's Caustic Caterpillar. Still another great add-on. Then we have Return to Nature and Beast Within. One of our more hefty removal spells, Terestodon. This card is amazing. It destroys up to 3 target non-creature permanents, and for each creature put into a graveyard this way, its controller creates a 3/3 green elephant creature token. Up next for our removal pieces, we have Siren Storm Tamer. One of our little counter target spell cards. It's really great because it's a creature, so it counts towards our counters. Then we have Mana Drain, Pyroblast, Deflecting Swat, and Force of Will. And for the board wipe that I decided to go with, Cyclonic Rift. It's really great just to get something targeted off the battlefield, or if I really want to use its overload, it's an amazing board wipe. Our next categories is +1 counters. To start it off, we have Evolution Sage. Really great for the amount of lands that we're going to be drawing. Then we have Hardened Scales. For one, I have always loved this card and it gets off very well. And because it doesn't aggro anybody directly, it's normally left alone for a very long time until it's too late. Then we have Zigana, Utopian Speaker. She's a very cool card when it comes to drawing and also giving herself +1 counters. And then it has the added bonus of any creature that I control with a +1 counter on it has trample. So that helps Animar swing. Then we have Fertilid. One of our few enchantment cards, we have Rhythm of the Wild. Creatures you control can't be countered, and non-token creatures you control have Riot, which means I can give them the choice of haste or +1 counter. Most of the time we're going to use +1 counters, but there are some pretty big creatures out here in this deck that can take advantage of the haste. We have Pure Imaginative Rascal with his buddy Toothy Imaginary Friend. Just as far as +1 counters go, these two are a great duo, especially since they search each other up. For our next category, we have Draw. To start us off, we have Adventure Awaits. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any random order. And if you didn't put a creature card or a card into your hand this way, draw a card. This card is really great for just running through what I might need on top of my deck. gets us there a lot faster to what we might need. Maybe we're looking for one of these pieces or an answer to something else that's on the board. And this is great to have on our turn. Next we have Brainstorm. And I mean it's Brainstorm. So we draw 3 cards and then put 2 cards from your hand on top of that. You get to look at 3 free cards, and no matter what, you know what's coming unless somebody decides to mess with our decks. Abundant Harvest. Choose land or non-land. Reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a card of the chosen kind. Put that card into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in any random order. This is really great if we're just running into any kind of mana problem. Hopefully we get to draw and find what we're looking for. And more times than not, that's what we're using it for. Or, again, looking for any of our combo pieces. And it's for only 1 green. Pretty good. Then we have Explore. Explore is a great card to have in our turn 1 hand. It just gets another land into play and draws us a card, and then maybe we'll even get to play other things on this one turn based off of this card. And I've seen it happen in this deck. It works really well. One of my favorite cards, Sensei's Divining Top. For 1 on the field and then pay 1, look at the top 3 cards of your library, then put them back in any order. And then if you so wish, tap this, draw it, and put it onto your deck. This card is just really great for top deck manipulation. And then if we really need something in a pinch, we can grab it. Next we have Veil of Summer. This one is really cool. So draw a card. If an opponent has cast a blue or a black spell this turn, spells you control can't be countered this turn. And permanents you control gain hexproof from blue and from black until end of turn. So if they're trying to counter Animar or any of our combo pieces with a blue counter spell or something, this gives us instant protection from that spell. Next on our draw list, we have Sylvan Library. You may draw 2 extra cards during your draw phase. If you do so, put 2 of the cards drawn this turn back on top of your library in any order, or pay 4 life per card not replaced. This card is really great if we have a lot of health going on right now because it gets us those extra cards that we probably will need. And Animar runs fast enough to where we can afford to lose quite a bit of life actually. One of our better draw cards, Risen Reef, Elemental 1/1. Whenever Risen Reef or another elemental enters the battlefield under your control, look at the top card of your library. If it's a land card, you may put it onto the battlefield tapped. If you don't put that card onto the battlefield, put it into your hand. So this card is just really great for ramping us for more land, and then it also plays with Animar being an elemental as well. So if I bounce Animar out after the fact, that also can play into our land game. Next we have Scale the Heights. Put a +1 counter on up to 1 target creature, you gain 2 life. You may play an additional land this turn, and then draw a card. This one's pretty great because it gives Animar a +1 counter. We gain 2 life, we get to play an additional land, and we get to draw a card. All for 3. I just couldn't see why we wouldn't want this in our deck. Then we have Elvish Visionary. Simply when it enters the battlefield, you can draw a card. But what's also great about this is that we can use Tamir Sabertooth to actually bounce her back and forth and just keep going as a draw engine. Next up, we have the Constipated Sphinx. The Consecrated Sphinx. It is a 4/6 flying Sphinx with whenever an opponent draws a card, you may draw 2 cards. This card is just devastating if left unattended. I have drawn obviously upwards of 6 cards every turn, just because when at the point that we're ready to cast this card, there are so many other things going on the board that he's not really a main concern, so he kind of slips through the cracks. Next up we have Uro, Titan of Nature's Wrath. They're a really great legendary creature. It's an Elder Giant, a 6/6 Elder Giant. First off, it comes onto the battlefield for only 3, but because of Animar, we're probably only going to pay 2, which is the green and the blue. He comes on, we gain life, we draw a card, and then we may put a land card from our hand onto the battlefield, giving us even more ramp. What's also great about this is when he hits the graveyard, we get a chance to actually summon him, and it's only for 2 more technically. And then we get to run through this again, and also we have a pretty powerful 6/6. Next we have Beast Whisperer. Whenever you cast a creature spell, draw a card. In this deck we run a lot of creatures, so if this is one of our first ones that we're getting, we're going to be drawing real fast. We have Tatiova, Benthic Druid, legendary creature Merfolk. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you gain a life and draw a card. Just pretty great if we're really drawing out our deck at this point and if we're running into a lot of lands. Last on our list for the draw, we have AC. You may play an additional land on each of your turns. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you may draw a card. It's just another great card for drawing, for putting more lands onto the battlefield. And whenever we do, we get to draw a card again. So hopefully we're just going through a continuous cycle with all the other draw engines that we'll have going. Okay, last up before the lands, we have our Mono Rocks and our Dorks. To start off the show, we have Soul Ring. Of course, for 1, add 2 to your mana pool. Really great card to have in your beginning hand. It's one of those kind of scenarios where if you have this plus a couple rocks and maybe some of the other cards that we've already mentioned, you can get anywhere from 3 to 5 cards in your first play if you have the right hand, and you'll see with what we have left. To help that go off, we have Arcane Signet. We could also throw the Felwar Stone. Or an even better card, the Ornithopter of Paradise. Because at this point, it's possible that we might already have Animar out, so it could count towards it either being free or just another counter to Animar. Then we have Mana Crypt to end it for our rocks. Very great card for a 0-drop. We get 2 right off the bat, and then we get to roll for a chance for damage. For our Dorks, we have the Dryad of the Elysian Grove. Really great card for the cost of what he is. Technically, Animar can make him just a green. You may play an additional land on each of your turns. Really great to have at any given point during the match. Lands you control are every basic land type in addition to their other types, so that just makes every color that we're going to need, which is perfect. Then we have Birds of Paradise, a simple flyer that gives 1 of any color. Then we have Copper Myrrh. Add a green to your mana pool, which could also technically be free if Animar is out and countered up. And last but definitely not least, the Elysian Carotid. A 1/1 plant, add 1 mana of any color. If you control a creature with power 4 or greater, add 2 instead. At this point, Animar is going to easily be a 4, if not greater. So we are more than likely going to be making 2. Last on our list is the land base. Starting off, we have lands that can give us any color, Exotic Orchard, and Reflecting Pool. Then we have City of Ass and Command Tower. And the last on our list for any colors is Mana Confluence. Really great. Pay 1 life, tap for any color. Who wouldn't want that? Next on our list, we have Shock lands. We have Breeding Pool, Stomping Ground, and Steam Vents. All in our colors, just for 2 damage. It can come out to the battlefield untapped. Pretty great in a pinch. And then I know they're proxies, but we do have a few dual lands in here. We have Tropical Island, the Taiga, and Volcanic Island. Next on our list, we have a couple fetch lands. We have the Misty Rainforest and the Scalding Tarn. You pay 1 life, crack it, and you go searching for either an island or a mountain, or a forest or an island. Last on our special list for lands is the Otawara Soaring City, a legendary land that says add 1 blue, or we could discard it and pay its channeling cost, which is a 3 and a blue, and Soaring City returns target artifact, creature, or enchantment, or planeswalker to its owner's hand. This ability costs 1 less to activate for each legendary creature you control. So we have a lot of legendary creatures in this deck, which helps us play with this card a lot better. And it obviously gives us protection. To help us get a little bit more land out there, we have Ancient Tomb. Add 2 to your mana pool, and Ancient Tomb deals 2 damage to you. One of our best land pieces, we have Kessig Wolf Run. Add 1 colorless, which is not what we really want it for, but what we want it for is to pay X, the red and the green, Target creature gets +X/+0 and gains trample until end of turn. Really great card if we're going infinite at any given point and somebody has blockers, it won't matter. And this is a land card, so it'll more than likely go overlooked most of the time. For some more recursion, we have Academy Ruins. Add 1 colorless or pay a 1 and a blue, tap, and put target artifact card from your graveyard on top of your library. Pretty good for retrieving our Walking Ballista or Ancestral Statue, or maybe even one of our rocks. To help us win the game, we have Rogue's Passage. Add 1 to your mana pool or pay 4 and tap this to target creature is unblockable this turn. Really good for if Animar is big and scary. Hell, he only needs to be a certain amount of number and this can still win the game. He doesn't necessarily need to go infinite. Up next, we have our forests, which are 6. Then we have 4 islands. And then we have 2 mountains.
Special thanks to Michael for showing off his Animar build. If you like this deck or any of the others on the channel, you can go to moxfield.com and see them all laid out for you. The link is in the description below. Consider subscribing and follow everything EDH on all platforms you see on screen. Thanks again for watching, my fellow wizards, and as always, stay foil.
End of movie.
End of movie. Nice.
Good job, bro.